Okay, so today we're going to talk about an artist who painted her own reality long before the world was really ready to see it. Frida Kahlo. I mean, she wasn't just a painter, right? She was a revolutionary. Her entire life and her art are just a masterclass in defiance.
And this right here is the heart of it all. She didn't ask for permission, not to exist, not to love, not to feel pain, and definitely not to create. Her refusal to soften her reality for anyone else is exactly what makes her such an enduring, powerful icon.
So, to really understand her, we have to look past the famous unibrow and see the complex, defiant, incredible person behind the canvas. Her life itself was a revolutionary portrait. And these are the intersections that really made her who she was. Think about it, her bisexuality, her disability, her passionate communist beliefs, and that deep, proud Mexican heritage. She was living all of this at a time when society was basically telling women, queer people, and the disabled to just be quiet. But she chose to be defiantly visible in every single part of her being.
But here's the thing. For decades, a huge piece of her story, her queerness, was either treated like a little footnote or even worse, just completely erased from the narrative. And we need to fix that.
So, this leads to the question people have often used to kind of simplify her legacy. Was she truly queer, or was it just, a phase, an artistic quirk? Yeah, no, let's just go ahead and dismantle that myth right now.
So the myth goes that her relationships with women were somehow less real, less important than her famous marriage to Diego Rivera. But the reality, and it's all documented in her own letters and accounts from lovers like Josephine Baker, is that she openly loved people of multiple genders. This wasn't some secret. It was a core part of her life, and she lived it at a time when doing so was incredibly dangerous.
And this is so crucial to get. We don't need to slap modern labels on her to validate her experience. She lived her truth, authentically, even without the specific words we might use today. Her life itself is all the evidence we need. And that lived truth is completely inseparable from her art. You can't pull them apart. Her identity and her creations weren't separate things. Her art was a direct result of who she was. It was her tool for survival. This quote from her just says it all. Her constant return to painting herself wasn't about vanity. It was an act of processing, of understanding, of surviving. She was her own most reliable subject. You can almost see her artistic process as this three-part act of defiance. First, it started with survival, using her self-portraits to deal with a chronic pain from her horrific bus accident and her emotional trauma. Then came rejection, as she defiantly refused to fit into Western beauty standards, highlighting her unibrow and facial hair. And finally, it was a full-throated embrace of her Mexican identity, putting traditional Tequana dresses and indigenous culture right at the center of her work, with absolutely no apologies. But, okay, if her art was so much about personal survival, how did it become so political? Well, to answer that, we have to tackle a really big myth about separating art from identity. There's this idea that floats around that art should exist in a vacuum, that it shouldn't be political, it shouldn't be about identity. Well, Frida's entire body of work is just a powerful, lifelong argument against that very idea. It all comes down to a concept called political visibility. For people who are pushed to the margins of society, simply being seen, living openly, creating art that reflects your true self, that becomes a profound act of resistance. It challenges the very systems that want to make you invisible. And let's be specific here. Her art directly challenged patriarchal control by depicting female pain and experiences like miscarriage with brutal honesty. It fought the erasure of queer desire by celebrating her relationships with women, and it completely defied colonial beauty standards by centering her indigenous features and traditional clothing. Every single brushstroke was defiant. So in the end, by refusing to hide her pain, her desires, or her identity, she completely transformed what the world saw as weakness into her greatest strength. Her vulnerability wasn't just personal, it was a powerful political statement. So, what does all of this mean for us, right here, right now? Let's connect her story to the present, because I think her legacy is more important than ever. This is her gift to us. For anyone out there who's navigating these layered identities, whether you're bisexual, a queer woman, disabled, or just feel like you don't fit neatly into any one box, Frida's life is proof that you don't have to explain or justify your existence to anyone. And this is really the ultimate takeaway from her story. She showed us that all the different, intersecting parts of who we are, the parts that might seem contradictory or complicated to the outside world, they are not weaknesses. That complexity is the very source of our power. In a world that so often demands that we show up with a simple, polished version of ourselves, Frida Kahlo teaches us to do the exact opposite. So the question she leaves us with is this: how can we, in our own lives, turn our vulnerability into our resistance?